This is the Let's Go Win podcast with your host, J.M. Ryerson.
What is happening, you guys? Welcome back to Let's Go Win podcast. This female I'm bringing on today, she is amazing. Former Miss Singapore, Genecia Alluora, was Southeast Asia Woman of Excellence 2010, International Progressive Woman 2019, and was awarded Noble Queen Most Prominent Woman Empowerment in 2020. Genecia is the founder of Soul Rich Woman, the #1 female entrepreneur network in Southeast Asia that connects more than 200,000 women across the region in the Soul F membership program. For the past 17 years, Genecia coached celebrities, CEOs, and politicians to be seen as a leader on stage. Today, with the Soul Rich Woman Blueprint and the SRW Academy, she mentors thousands of women to bring their business and leadership brand online. Genecia, how are you doing today? That is quite a resume, young lady.
Thank you. And thanks for having me on your show. Really glad to be here.
It's truly my pleasure. You've done so many interesting things. Let's just start with the Miss Singapore. Because I've never met a Miss Singapore before. Is this something that you did growing up? You were doing pageants. How did you get into that? Because obviously I think that's launched you into this spotlight, and you've grown with this platform so many amazing things.
Definitely joining Miss Singapore has changed my life, but I never had the intention to join one. In fact, I had to really groom myself and build my confidence for this purpose. My friends enrolled me into this pageant because they saw and believed in me more than I believed in myself. Because all along in school, I had to support myself through school. So more often than not, I'm usually the poorer one out of the entire group and often being bullied. So when my friends saw that I had the potential, they said, hey, why don't you just give it a try? So yeah, there I was joining the pageant.
Well, so there's a couple of things you said that. So in terms of being bullied, maybe not having the resources to not even having the confidence, now you're empowering women across the world. There was a major shift that took place at some point where you said, I have tons of confidence, or maybe I've figured out, maybe it's a system. What was that shift, Genecia? Because that's pretty awesome to hear somebody say, I didn't have everything. I wasn't that confident. And now you're empowering hundreds and hundreds of thousands of women across the world.
The major shift that happened for me was because I had that tenacity and grit to really not be stuck in my own circumstances. So I went through knocking on doors, asking for sponsorships, asking people to train me and groom me for the pageant that I haven't won yet. So when I went to knock on doors, someone agreed to sponsor me, train me, guide me, and she didn't charge me a single cent. And that was when she was pretty interesting. Let me share with you what happened. She took out she asked me for my wallet. I said, okay, I pass you my wallet, Rebecca. So she gave me all her books, her DVDs and her CDs. And she gave me all these materials and said, you got to study all those, but you got to give me your wallet. And I gave her my purse, my wallet, and she opened it up and then she poured out all my money, which was the entire savings I had, or the amount I had in my wallet. And that was about $60 for the entire month. And I'm like, Rebecca, why are you taking all my money? And she said, I'm going to share with you this concept of value exchange. Nothing is free in this world. You have to really work really hard for this. So I really worked my ass off. The major shift for me from that, I'm not willing to be stuck at that zone, really getting my ass up and move through something I wanted to do, that really opened doors for me. And when people could see that I've not won Miss Singapore yet, and they were willing to sponsor me and help me, I think that really changed my mind about how I could help people in the future as well. And that is why I'm also doing what I'm doing right now, empowering women around the world.
It's a cool story. And I don't carry a purse. I'm not a female, but that's pretty personal. Somebody just taking your stuff and dumping it all out. But the whole idea of there's no value to to free. There's zero value to free. Obviously, she taught you that lesson immediately, where it's like, you have a vested interest, I have a vested interest, and clearly your work ethic is unbelievable. Let me ask you this, because obviously you advancing women's causes is extremely important to you. Why is it female empowerment, women's rights, and growth, why is that so important to you? Where did that come from?
As I've mentioned, it came from the space where I had people helping me when I was at the position where I didn't have a lot of resources. And what I had, however, was resourcefulness. And imagine that if I could help someone, gave them a platform where they could leap off my giant shoulders to go from where they are now to where they want to be much, much faster, and allowing them to invest in themselves for their purpose of growth, I think that's really valuable and a lesson for them to pick up. When we teach a woman or man how to fish, it teaches them how to fish for a lifetime.
Yeah. And so instead of just giving them one fish, you're teaching them how to go fish so they can continue to replenish their own, food on the table or whatever that. I love the analogy there. So let me ask you this, this grit, this tenacity that you have, was it something that was a learned behavior? Is this something that was modeled for you from your parents? Where did that come from? Because again, Angela Duckworth said it, in her book, Grit, the most important thing we have is grit. Where did you develop that? Because I love the concept, and I'm just curious how more people can say, I believe what Genecia did, I want to do the same.
My mother is definitely that source of role model for me, because I did mention that I was often bullied in school. And there were several times I tried to commit suicide because the bullying was getting too much for me to bear in school. I remember almost jumping off the building on the 10th floor, because we live in a high-rise building on the 10th floor. I was sitting at the edge of the kitchen window, ready to jump. My mom was the one who pulled me back. She just felt that something was wrong, right, on that day itself. And she pulled me back and she saved my life. And she told me sternly, looking at my face and looking me and eyeball to eyeball, and said, you know what? You really have to turn your mess into your message. No matter what happened to you, no matter what people say to you, criticize you, or bully you, you have to be the source of your strength and stand up for yourself. And that was like, what? At that moment, I couldn't understand it, but I could feel the essence. And the essence went in me and planted a seed in my soul.
Turn your mess into your message. I mean, that's powerful. How old were you when you had this conversation? That's phenomenal advice. And your mother's a brilliant woman to say that, but how old were you when that happened?
14.
Wow. And so when you were, and we'll get into as you grew some of the soul rich woman, but how old were you when you were Miss Singapore? How old were you at that point?
21.
So in 7 years, you go from having this moment where you're literally like, I don't think it's worth it. Your mother tells you, you turn your mess into your message. 7 years later, you're Miss Singapore. You are literally recognized certainly around your country, if not the world, as someone that is empowered, is this really bright, fulfilled woman. That's amazing. Talk to me a little bit more about Soul Rich Woman. And obviously entrepreneurship is something that you're passionate about. You're teaching others to do. Tell me more about that company.
What we do is to help women to own and love the F word: fabulous, freedom, financial independence, and a happy family. So we guide them how to make it happen through multiple mediums, for example, podcasting, live streaming, and of course, digital marketing, to brand themselves online, to be seen as a leader online. Overall, we are a community and we are in 7 countries: Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand, Myanmar, and Cambodia. And that in itself has translated in the last 2 years, especially during COVID-19, we have grown to more countries, especially when I went on to the medium of podcasting, more people knew about us. So overall, we are doing a lot more training and mentoring, and that has really benefited a lot of the women who has embarked on a journey with us.
Well, it sounds like the pandemic, you really, not that you embrace it and like, okay, yeah, this is good, but you said, look, there's an opportunity to develop this across these digital platforms. How, can you talk to people about maybe ways they can do that? You know, because so many people, they took advantage, sat on the couch, watched Netflix, didn't go out, didn't build things. You chose the other path, and you chose, look, we're going to grow this thing. We're going to help a lot of, certainly women, I'm sure men along the way as well, but we're going to help them across all these different countries. What would you say to people if they're sitting there still today, not responding, not getting out there? What's kind of action that you would tell them to do?
The only thing is that first, own up to the voice that you want to be the role model that you want your children to look up to. I think start from that space where you can be a role model in your own area, instead of thinking, oh, I want to be that Oprah Winfrey or to be that Gary Vaynerchuk kind of leader. Start from a space where you can own your own ground, own your own territory. I think that would be a good place to start.
I mean, that's great advice. Figure out what you're, instead of trying to imitate somebody else, be your authentic self is really what I heard there. So talk to me about building one of the leading women's support groups in Southeast Asia. How has that been received? I mean, I've spent time in Thailand, I've spent time in Hong Kong, but I've never been to Singapore, and I haven't been to some of the other countries you mentioned. How has that been received in terms of women's rights, in terms of empowerment? How is that culturally? Is that something that's been pretty well received, or have you had any pushback along the way?
This is a very interesting question, because before COVID-19, I was traveling Southeast Asia. I was hardly in Singapore. In fact, 3 weeks in Indonesia, and then 1 week in Singapore, and then I'm out to Malaysia, and then I'm off to Vietnam. I'm off to Cambodia and Myanmar. So what really transpired is we work with community partners on the ground, like giving them licensing to our training programs, guiding them how to form communities, teaching the women how to go online, how to start a side hustle for their own, from whether they're 9 to 5 or starting their own business on the side, moving into affiliate marketing or starting a podcast or going to live streaming, whatever the case may be. So working with local parties do help to spread the word and strengthen that, I will say, partnership and growth of the membership from the ground up. And of course, on the online platform, we have a monthly membership program that's priced at $12 a month. And that is like a curated content, curated step-by-step process where any woman who wants to embark on going online, building their entrepreneurship dream, they could come into this $12 a month and become a part of our community. You see, I did not start this at $12 a month at first. I failed many times. Let me share with you 2 failures on my journey. The first failure was when I still remember I went to Vietnam and I was talking about women, you got to get out there, you got to do your online, you got to go do this, build a side hustle. And I went to Hanoi, and which is very different from Ho Chi Minh City. And in Hanoi itself, guess what happened? The women, they're like, okay, we are very happy in our 9 to 5 jobs. And the culture over there is, if we were to leave our jobs, we will be seen as not filial to the family. Culturally, if women were to leave their 9 to 5 jobs and move into entrepreneurship, you are being outcast from that family. So we needed to break that barrier. And that is why working with local partners are so important, to bring their message forth, ease them out of their confidence, bring up their level, and then move them into entrepreneurship. And then for the online platform, At first, I experimented the $50, $60, $100 a month, that kind of amount. And then you realize these countries, how much are these women making? They're making 300 US a month. They're making 500 USD a month. They couldn't afford $100 out of their $300 salary. So in the end, after going around Southeast Asian countries, we decided to price our price point at $12. And that was when we had a breakthrough in our membership numbers. And yeah, the rest is history.
Yeah, that's pretty fascinating because again, I don't know these cultures as well as I would like to have this conversation. But what I would say is, okay, you would be shunned or looked down upon because you are now doing more than the 9 to 5, or you're not taking care of the family. Somehow your maternal spirit is being questioned. But I have to imagine as you've helped these women grow into actually having more time, more freedom, making more money than what you just described, some of these men have to be like, Genecia, you're pretty awesome. Is that been some of the response? Because again, to break down those barriers and say, look, we're not actually taking away. We want to enhance what's happening in your family dynamic. We want to enhance the family culture. Has that been some of the response that you've received?
I think on contrary, the women became more confident and got to step out of the comfort zone and learn to defend their own dreams. I had a case study here. This girl, she was one of my translators when we went to Vietnam, and she was not very confident, or she was very quiet, but very diligent. She learned English. That's why she could translate between Vietnamese and English. And being with us in the community, eventually she found her soulmate, and she's now moved to America because she met someone through gaining confidence through our programs and meeting her boyfriend then in Vietnam, who was there on a business trip, and eventually they now got married. So happily ever after.
It's one of my favorite things that I describe in my own coaching, and it was not what I meant for, but when you work with people and you build up, who they are, taking care of themselves, they find their true love. They find that soulmate because they're able to be themselves. I love that. So you mentioned one of my favorite F words, which is failure. I love to fail. I think it's one of the greatest things. What is your favorite F word? Because you mentioned fabulous, which I think is you clearly are fabulous. I will say that. Freedom. I love that. What is your favorite F word? Do you have one, or is there just a repertoire of words that you're like, these are my F words that I love to use?
The reason I coined these F words in the first place, because I realized that nobody wanted their success to look the same. Everybody have their own idea of what the F word could be. And that is why we had different areas. And for myself personally, I love family. And that is one piece I would say that gave me the strength and growth to be able to do what I'm doing right now. In fact, what I'm doing now is like a legacy business of sort, and kind of letting women see and that they do not need to give up their family to be fabulous or to even be financial independent. It's simply giving them freedom of choice, so that if they were to buy their kids extra clothes, they don't need to ask husband for money. They don't need to ask, oh, can I have the permission to do this? They have a choice to do the things they want and to do the things they love.
I mean, that is pretty remarkable, just to see someone rise to the occasion and really take shape. You literally have one of the best jobs every single day because you get to watch people fulfill their dreams. I love that. So talk to me about personal branding in today's digitally connected world. Obviously, that it's something that has come to the forefront over the last 10 years, certainly, but even more rapidly over the since the pandemic. What about personal branding? What would you tell someone listening today to say, look, this is why your personal brand is so important? This would be step one.
Learn to solve one problem immediately on the space that you are in, whatever industry you are in, because like you said, everyone has moved online. There is like so much competition, and there's a lot of things happening in the online space. Facebook just launched Reels for Facebook, and then Instagram, and it's like, wow, getting massive, right? Videos are in, but all these are just vehicles, right? At the end of the day, what kind of message are you putting out there for people to say yes to you? Look, there was this TikToker who is named the top 20 influencers on TikTok just teaching Excel on TikTok. How simple and easy is that for this girl, Miss Excel? Her handle on TikTok is called Miss Excel, and she does just one thing, which is to teach people Excel. And she's making X number of dollars online, and she's having millions of followers, plus the fact she's named one of the top influencers. So solve one problem immediately and let people see that through your social media and online presence.
Yeah, that's amazing. Just to think, again, everybody knows of Excel or has used it at some point. What can I really provide? And she's one of the top TikTokers in the world. That's amazing. So,
named by Forbes, top 20 influencers.
Holy shit, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Just teaching Excel. Although, look, I'd be a great student. I need a lot of help on it.
I don't know Excel. I only know Google documents.
Hey, well, see, Genecia, you and I are way more similar than I thought, because when it comes to tech, this is a need. I love what you said there. Find the one thing. Talk to me about Soul Rich Woman. I love the name. I talk about mind, body, and soul every single day. Specific with the word soul and rich together. Obviously, we've been talking about the woman side of things, but why did you put those two together? I think it's a great name, but how did you come up with that?
Well, I always love to manifest richness in life, like wealth and material stuff, which is on external, richness, which is on internal, right? So because that in itself, rich is just not enough. If you have mind, body, and soul totally aligned, that's when you can fulfill your passion, your purpose, leave a legacy, inspire others, make an impact. All these will come together when your soul truly functions at its core, authentically bring forth the richness in whatever that you manifest, whether it's in material or is it in that essence of wanting to help people. I think that to me embodies the totality of a soul rich woman.
It's a great name. Whether it was you, it's literally, it's marketing gold. So I love that. You mentioned that this is kind of your legacy company. This is your legacy. What does that mean to you? What is the legacy when people, someday look back and say, Genecia, this is her legacy? What does that look like for you? Because this is a pretty deep conversation for me, something that I spend a lot of time myself asking, what is my legacy? I'm curious to know if you know what that is, because you said this is the legacy that I'm building, this is my legacy company. What is that going to look like someday when people are reflecting back on Genecia and who you were as in this world?
I'm quite morbid on this area because so let me just give you a context. I have been an occupational therapist. I graduated as one. I've been through the severe acute respiratory syndrome, the SARS period that happened in Asia. That was really quite a huge pandemic in 2004 and 2003. And I saw a lot of people dying during that time when I was working in the hospital. So now pulling it forward to where we are at now, I'm asking myself, if I were to pass on today, right now, at this moment, what would people say in the eulogy they were to leave me? And then what have happened or transformed in their life for the seeds I've planted in them through the message I share online, through the things I've helped them to own and love their effort? That to me is legacy, not that overarching, oh, okay, I want to help 1 million people. Well, that is the ultimate goal. But what is that transformation I've made for them or done for them, or the seed that's planted in them to allow them, to give them the permission to shine?
Wow. Well, you're doing that work. And so far you've reached, I think you said approximately, you've connected with 200,000. What is that goal for Soul Rich Woman and what's the other, Soul F membership? What is that goal? Do you have a number in mind? You've said 7 countries. How big is this thing going? Because you're pretty passionate. You said you have grit. You clearly have the work ethic. How big are you going with this thing?
Of course, I hope to grow the membership to 1 million members. we'll never know how it is going to be. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I'm just going to keep going and keep inspiring until a certain point where it will multiply and have this effect.
So you said the word inspiring, which again is one of my favorite words. What inspires you when you wake up every single day? What is it that says just gets you out of bed and you're excited to get out of bed? What is it that really inspires you on a daily basis?
The results of the women who come to me and say, thank you, Genecia, thank you. Because of you, I did this. Because of that, I did this. And because a lot of them didn't just follow me for a single year. I mean, I started working since I was 14. I went online to Facebook in 2000 and 3 or 4 or something like that. And there were many people who already followed me since and during that time. And they may not sign up for my courses, they may not have bought anything from me, but the message that we're putting out there, the stuff that we're putting out there, they thank me. They will write to me and say, oh, wow, this is something that have helped me. This is something that have transformed my life. And some of them take our programs, they've gone through our systems, and they're like, wow, this has done something for me. So to me, all this collective consciousness gives me the pleasure of keeping my power going.
That's awesome. Do you have any specific stories? You don't have to say names if you don't want to, but stories that really stick out to you where you're like, oh, so-and-so, she started here and this is what she has created. Do you have any of those at the top of your mind where you're just like, I'd love to share this story because I'd love to hear it?
Yeah, I have a lady who was working 9 to 5 in her accountancy job for a very long time. And she's starting her business. She ran a studio, a fitness company, and she didn't know how to really quit her job eventually and then grow the business. So one fine day, she found me online and she came to us and we helped her to eventually be able to quit her job and grow from one outlet to 14 outlets. And that's around Singapore. And that to me is a great deal to help her to realize her dream, be able to fulfill her inspirations from a part-time entrepreneur to becoming a full-time entrepreneur.
It's awesome. You mentioned in the bio, it talks about you were coaching peoples on how to be a leader on stage. Specific that word stage. I'm curious what you teach them, how to really show up to be that leader. What is it that people are not missing? Because it's in there. What do you bring forth from them, whether it's on this stage, on a physical stage? What is that you're able to bring about? Because I think everybody would love to know, how can I be a bigger leader in this stage?
One of the key problems I solve for leaders, especially when it talks about putting them on stage, is to always clear them in their messaging, their alignment. When they are sharing, for example, about whatever that they're thinking about, talking about, it's always aligning the points for greater impact. So that in a nutshell is what I do for them to be a greater leader, because sometimes we tend to lead by our title. That's one. Number two is we tend to techno blabble a lot, which means like we talk about the technical jargons and stuff like that. Sometimes we forget that we need to inspire, to be a cheerleader. We need to kind of lead them from the heart and then showing them, okay, these are some of the plans that we need to do. So kind of stuff that we are working on to allow them to connect heart to heart, because when you are in an organization, when you're on stage, people feel that you're really far away. And how then do you bring yourself down to their level, at their level, to be able to communicate with them heart to heart? So that's what we are working on.
So you guys, I talk about this more than anything when it comes to public speaking. If there's anything like, for example, right now, there is a microphone in the way of my heart to Genecia's. It's not ideal. And specific when you're speaking on stage, this is so important, or connecting with a human being. You'll notice when I talk, I actually do touch my chest. I'm literally saying from my heart to your heart. So there's a lot that goes into it. Did you learn this as you were going on stage for being Miss Singapore? Was that where that came about, that training, or is this just the humanistic part that your mom taught you? Or I'm just curious, because I was taught from one of my mentors how important it was, why your heart connecting with that person and not having something in the way like this microphone or this computer screen. But specific when you're on stage, how do you do that? So did you learn that through, I guess there's two questions there. Did you learn that in your training for your pageants? And how can people do that? What is some tips that you would give to really let them connect with somebody else on a heart-to-heart level?
I think for me, I picked up this training when, of course, I was going through the pageant training. I think that really has groomed me quite from a local girl to an international stage, having represented Singapore twice, once in Japan for Miss International, and then once in Malaysia for Miss Chinese Cosmos. So these training really gave me an opportunity to learn and hone my skill set overall. I think one of the key strategy for someone to be able to connect heart to heart, what I love is to be able to stand in the point of their shoes. So I always do the exercise with my leaders, is that when you are seeing it through your own eyes, are you standing in their shoes, experiencing? Are you seeing what they are seeing? Are you hearing what I'm hearing? Tasting, sensing, like switching on all the senses using a technique in NLP as well, helping them to experience some of the emotions that possibly people are experiencing, and then getting them to get out of it, looking at it from the third party point of view, and then connect that point. What would you say? What would you think in between to make sure that point meet? So that's usually one of the exercise that we do.
Yeah, I mean, no better way than to look through someone else's lens, right? And really, it gives you a permission to seek to understand how they would see it, which obviously is going to help lead that. So, one of my favorite words, F words, is freedom. What does freedom really mean to you, Genecia? Can you pinpoint when you think of freedom? Because it's one of my favorite F words, and it's something that's so important to me. What does freedom mean to you?
Freedom of choice, freedom to do what you love at any time you want. I think that is true freedom. Freedom of choice and freedom to do whatever that you want. I mean, travel around the world is a physical, that's like a vehicle, right? But really, truly waking up in the morning, are you at peace? Are you feeling aligned? That's why the soul comes about, isn't it?
Yeah. How many countries have you visited? Do you know by offhand?
No, I lost count.
I would imagine it's quite a few. I just want to kind of give you the open forum. If there's something I didn't ask you that I should have known, like, and Genecia, this is what you want to share with the world. So before we kind of end off, is there any open forum item that you want to make sure to get to the audience?
We are having an opportunity to share, because I've done a lot of interviews with great people like Gary Vaynerchuk, Warren Buffett, Sheryl Sandberg. I've traveled the world to meet all these people. I never met all of them in Singapore. It was during my travels that I make sure I booked my ticket and I was there when they were there and got the opportunity to meet them. And I've curated a series of interviews that embodies the F word, the fabulous, the freedom, the financial independence, and the happy family aspects. And I would love for people to know and experience how these leaders are thriving in the F word, and that they can go to makeithappenSecrets.com to go enroll in that. Is absolutely free for them.
Well, you guys, you mentioned some pretty powerful people. Sheryl Sandberg, I've read a couple of her books. She is one badass lady. She is amazing. I haven't had the chance to meet her, but I absolutely will check that out. Genecia, I appreciate you being here. Where can our listeners connect with you online, really get to know what you're doing? I don't know how you wouldn't love to hear what you're doing right now. So where can they connect with you online?
Well, you can, if you love today's episode, you can connect with me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram at Genecia Alluora, and that is GeneCiAALluora. And if you like to have a free gift, I do have one for you, which is one of my books. It's called Secrets of Personal Branding, and that's available at soulrichwoman.com. And that is SOULRICHWOMAN.com.
You guys, will make sure to link that in the show notes. Go check it out. I mean, she's done a whole lot in the limited time she's been on this earth, and she's going to continue to do a whole lot more. Genecia, I appreciate what you're doing for all the females and males, because you're actually shifting not just the females. You are helping everyone by changing that mindset, and I so appreciate that. And I just want to thank you for being here. You were an awesome interview.
Thank you.
You guys go check it out. Go get the free book. Listen to the interviews that she's doing. She's accomplished a lot. You can learn a lot. And until next time, you guys, remember your mindset matters. We'll talk to you then. Thank you so much for listening. If this content is delivering value to you, please make sure to subscribe, rate, and review us. That helps us build this community, and that is what we are all about. Building this community as big as we can, helping as many people as we can, and deliver as much value as possible. Be sure to head over to letsgowinpodcast.com for information on my coaching courses, and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Let's Go Win 365. Let's go win and transcend in life.
This is the Let's Go Win podcast with your host, J.M. Ryerson.